Now in today's video, we're taking a look at the LaserPecker LX2. And the LX2 is one of the most powerful and most easy to use lasers that I've seen from LaserPecker in a very long time. It really shows a different level of not only performance and speed, but also in usability. It's also highly configurable. It's a laser that allows you to run a 2-watt laser if you want to work with metal. It also has a 40-watt laser if you want to work with any kind of organic material like coasters, wood. You think about all types of wood and also other material types, including, for example, acrylics. They also have a 20-watt laser that I have on the machine right now, and they're coming out with a 60-watt laser that's going to give you even more power. So this gives you really the option with one laser to really switch from laser type to meet your needs. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would you want to be able to do that? Why would you want to be able to switch from laser type to laser type? Well, for example, if you want to work with metal, if you want to work with, let's say, metal wallets or engrave any kind of metal material, you're going to want to be able to use a 2-watt IR or the IR laser, which is designed for that. And typically you would have to have maybe a different laser in order to do this. The fact that you can just swap modules very easily within, again, seconds is something that makes this laser highly attractive. The other thing is that this laser is fast. This laser is a gantry laser, which means that the lasers themselves, these objects that you see right here, move left to right and forward and back as they're engraving. So it's doing one of these things that's engraved. So if you have never really worked with a laser before, think about a inkjet printer, how an inkjet printer goes from left to right as it's printing ink. Well, as this is cutting or it's engraving, right, with the laser, it's doing the same thing. 100 millimeters or 1,000 millimeters per second is a really, really good speed. Now, keep in mind that 1,000 millimeters per second is the top speed. And you're going to see a lot of other speeds, like, for example, 10,000 millimeters per second in acceleration. And there's a difference there. There's engraving speed that we're talking about of 1,000 millimeters, and then there is acceleration. That means that from here to here, if it were to move, the maximum speed that it can move at, like that, is 10,000 millimeters. Now, that wasn't 10,000 millimeters fast, but you get my point. One thing to understand, and at least my philosophy for lasers, is that anytime I see these specs that are crazy, like 1,000 millimeters per second or 10,000 millimeters per second, I see that as top speed. And that's no different than when you look at a car and you see that a car has a top speed of 300 or 400 miles per hour. It doesn't mean that you drive it that fast. It says that it can do it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to drive as well. You're going to be able to handle it. And the same thing happens with lasers. I find that these top speeds don't really represent the reality of engraving. That said, I want to be very clear. It is faster in traditional usable engraving speeds. So engraving a coaster, engraving a slit, it is fast, right? But just that incredible speed. Don't get so by the top number. That's something that I never would really focus on. The other thing is that this laser has a large engraving area, 22 by 18, and that's great. And it also does curved engraving. So if you think about having anything, a bowl, a spoon, materials that require that curvature, or even if as you're doing tumblers, right, it has a curvature. It really helps it drive that engraving to be very consistent. It has also curved engraving features, which we just covered. It also has Smart Assist Air. So this Air Assist function will basically turn on automatically as it needs it. And Air Assist ensures that you're going to get a better engrave. So it reduces charring. It creates a more finer, more refined image when it engraves. And, when you start working like a 40-watt and a 20-watt, the difference between is not just power, but it's also dot size. Like, how big is the laser dot? And 20 tends to have a more fine dot size. 40 has a bigger dot size. Regardless of what you're doing, having a Smart Air Assist is going to ensure that that engrave is crisper, right? So that's really important. It does have a riser base, and the good thing about the riser base is that it allows you to raise and lower the material that you're going to be engraving in the event that you're doing something big. So for example, if I'm engraving something that is as simple as a metal card, right? Or even, because we have an IR laser, you could even engrave chargers like this. This is not going to require the actual riser to be lower. But if I'm, let's say, engraving something that's a box, and the box is this big, or maybe it's a foot tall, you can actually lower the base so that you can fit it inside of the laser and get access to engraving something that tall. And the laser has actually two openings that it can work with. It not only has the tray that slides in and out to make it deeper, but it actually has an overhead open, which is standard on most lasers, but it also has a front drawer that opens. And I think that is not standard. That's unique and it makes it really easy to place material inside of the laser. It also has the ability to cut wood that's 22 millimeters wide or thick, and then acrylic that is 20 millimeters, so 22 and 20. And they have done something that's really important. And what I find is important and the most challenge that people have when working with a laser is that being able to engrave material or cut material is challenging. And let's face it, everybody doesn't want to go through testing. What they've been doing is that they've been investing in material lists. They have over 300 different materials that you're able to engrave, and the settings are already there for you. Not only that, but their laser will also recognize a QR code and will use it. And the QR code isn't proprietary. Yes, it comes with their material, but let's say, for example, you have a material QR code for basswood. As long as you have that QR code, the next time you put basswood in there, regardless of brand, it's going to recognize it as long as you put the QR in there, and it's going to know the settings it needs. This is something that really makes it easy. The way I compare this, it's like, think about the coffee machines, right? There are coffee machines that have a little barcode that as soon as you put the coffee in, it reads the barcode and it knows what to do. That's what we're talking about. That's the convenience that we're talking about. So the laser is easy, it's smart, it's fast. And then one thing I wanted to mention that I think really is important or sets this laser apart is I do a lot of laser reviews because it's actually part of Nilda's business. The one thing I found is that this has one of the most accurate cameras that I've seen in a gantry type laser. Again, gantry meaning that the head moves left to right and forward and back. It is very, very accurate. And I haven't seen that. This level of accuracy, I haven't seen it yet. There are more expensive lasers out there that probably have it, but in this class, this thing is super accurate. And what accurate translates to you, if you're going from hobby to small business, it means professional looking engravings. So let's go ahead and take a look at everything that we've done. I'm going to show you the software. I'm going to show you some of the features that I've actually leveraged in the laser. It's a great laser. It's Wi-Fi. It has a great application, and it's just fun to use. This could be something that you can use that starts from a hobby that would take you into a small business, not a big business, but a small business. And it could be something that's going to catapult your business if you're interested into getting into laser. So let's get right to it. Now, part of our setup includes the LaserPecker air purifier, and this is an essential accessory when it comes to the entire setup because it gives you the ability to use the LX2 anywhere. You're not really stuck in a place that only has window venting access. And while we can vent out through the window during the summer, during the winter we tend not to, so we use these quite a bit. And very friendly on-screen display. Is very straightforward. I'm going to show you what the filters look like. It does have an extra exhaust so that if you, for whatever reason, it's not doing enough to capture maybe acrylic smell, because let's say, for example, mirrored acrylic tends to smell a lot, you could always vent out the second piece through the side here, or put even an additional filter, which is something that I do at times, as long as it doesn't impact airflow. You notice right here, this is the exhaust that's coming out, and this does have the ability for you to connect a hose to actually take this out. So this would eliminate a lot of the smells going out to a certain degree, because the filter is going to filter out the majority of the VOCs, and then this is going to basically expel anything that it was not able to capture. You will notice that on the side, on each side, it does have a handle, which makes this really easy to carry. So if you did have to take this to a different location, you should be able to do that without a problem. On the top of the filter, this is the actual intake. The hose gets connected to this, and I just want to show you what the filters look like, or what the filter looks like. Now, the filter does come with a pre-filter. And the pre-filter is what you're going to change often. I typically wash these because you can get a lot of life out of this. Typically, if you're cutting acrylic, this doesn't get too dirty. If you're cutting wood, that's when you actually get to see this getting dirty, and that's where you would have to wash it. And the filter will let you know when it's having difficulty, almost like breathing per se, or that it's too clogged, where you can just wash this. So you don't have to change all the filters out just because the machine tells you that it's having some difficulty, because in most cases that is due to that pre-filter. Now, this is the main filter, and this is the one that you'll need to change. We'll go ahead and move this over to the side. This is the main filter, and this is the one that is the carbon filter, is the HEPA filter, has all the main filtration that's really going to keep your work area safe. And you'll notice right here it indicates, the down position of how this is going to be set up. So this is your main, this is your pre, and again, your pre is the one that you'll change often, but you can wash. And then this is the one that you'll change depending on your usage, because it's the main one that's handling most of the, again, pollutants that are being captured. Now, the LaserPecker LX2, in my opinion, is one of the best looking lasers from the LaserPecker line. I think that the design language is spectacular. I think they really put in a lot of thought into this laser. And you could see, not just in the software, but the overall experience and then just the functionality of the laser, that it is a good design. Now, I do have the riser. So this area right here is the riser for the LaserPecker, and then this is the LaserPecker itself. And yeah, one of those guys that doesn't take off the plastic, so excuse the plastic at the very top. One of the things that I have is I have all three lasers. So I have the 20 watt, I have the 40 watt, and then I have the IR. I don't have yet the 60 watt, but I hope to get that as well. And I needed a place to put all these lasers. So on the side here, I created this laser caddy. And I expect that many of you that are really into this type of laser and are going to be getting it would most likely have at least two lasers. I have a three caddy version too, but I think the two is going to be great. And what the caddy does is it allows you to keep your lasers here on the side, just like that. So here's my 40 watt, right? And the 40 watt basically has a single connector that connects to the actual laser. You have your air assist that goes right here. And then here is you put the module that does for the bed leveling, you know, to see actually the depth gauge, I guess you would call it. And it's magnetic and it locks in here. And then you could see the actual bottom of the laser. When I'm done with it, you know, especially since I have one that's installed right now, I have the 20, all I do is put it right on their side and it's just there available for reach. I have my IR laser here. And again, this is our 2 watt laser. You can see how that looks right there. Let's make sure that it's in focus. Yep. And when you look at this one right here, what I like about it is it's smaller, it's lighter, but it still has the same attributes. So you can see here, we have, again, our air assist module, the air or the actual power adapter, the air assist, and then you can see that the laser is somewhat different because of the overall changes. Let's start this one from the top because I think that that didn't come out clear, the very first one. This is going to go for the top. Now, the LaserPecker LX2 is one of the best looking lasers in the LaserPecker line, in my opinion. I really love the design philosophy that they went with this laser, and I also like the fact that you have just the overall thoughtfulness in the design really shows that LaserPecker has paid attention to a lot of the feedback. The top right here, this is made out of a polycarbonate material. You have metal material for the base here, so this is your riser base. These are two separate solutions. We're going to take a look at all the different aspects of the laser in a second. But yeah, I'm that guy. I don't remove the plastic off of my lasers. I have other lasers here on the side that I've had them for years, and I still have the plastic on top of them because it drives me crazy when things scratch. And it doesn't bother me to have the plastic on the top. On the side here, one of the things that I designed is a laser caddy. I have 3 lasers. I have the 20 watt, the 40 watt, and the IR. And if you are picking up 2 lasers, it's important to have it somewhere easily accessible and quickly to get to. So I have it over here on the side, and they just lock into place really easily. And you can see how quickly I remove this one. So here we have our 40 watt laser. You'll notice the bottom, that's the laser. On the side, you'll see this is your air assist. You do have your power connection, and then this is the connection that allows everything to happen, and then the mounting system in the back. I'm gonna put it back, and if I want to look at my 2 watt IR, that's all it takes, guys. That's how fast I can swap from one to the other. Just grab it, and you'll notice that the laser itself is a little bit different. This is going to be great for metal. This is going to be, again, having the same attributes, even has air assist as well when you're working with metal. We'll go put this guy right here back as well. So that gets put into place. So I like the fact that we have those really easy within reach. Let's take a closer look at other attributes of the laser. Now, in front of the laser, the other thing that you'll find with this laser is that it has a really nice door, right, that opens. And even though it doesn't stop at every position like you see here, like as I'm doing, it doesn't slam down either heavily. I have another laser that I had reviewed that you had to really be careful because it would chop a body part off. This one doesn't have that force, but once you open it up all the way, it will remain open. And we're going to see what's going on there in a second. Because what I also like in the design is this piece right here. This makes it so easy to really work with material, right? And then if I want to, let's say, work here in the very bottom, this is going to be two things I can work with. The top is where I can put my materials, but then at the same time on the bottom, this is where the trays get lowered or raised depending on the depth of the material that you're working with. So I really, really like the way that works. Now, the last thing that you'll find in the front is the that function button there. I call it a function button because when you send something to print, or to engrave in this case, you tap that. If you send something to cut, you tap that. If you're going to frame, you tap that. And every color signifies something. So the blue that you see there is just connected, and it's connected to my Wi-Fi, and it's ready to go. Now at the top here, you do have a light, and then you have the camera. The camera is really good. I have to say that the accuracy of this laser really surprises me. Surprises me in a really good way. And I'm going to show you a piece that I engraved. There's actually a couple pieces that we engraved, but I'm just going to show you this right here. So this is the testing grid, right? So this is a grid that basically when you're doing your camera calibration, the camera basically does this grid right here, and then it takes a snapshot of this to make sure that it has things right. What I then did is, once I did that calibration, I drew a circle. And this is a common practice here. A lot of people are doing this just to see if it would fit exactly where it was on the screen. And as I go over here, I just want to show you how accurate that is. Look how accurate that is. That was spot on based on what was going on the camera. And then, you know, the same thing took place. We did some bamboo. So, you know, this is, again, one of the samples that we did, a bamboo cutting board, but we'll look at this a little bit later. Now, as we focus on what's going on inside the laser here, just for a second, you have your 20 watt. You'll notice that it does have a crosshair alignment, or a crosshair for pinpointing things, which I like. You know, so if you want to get something crosshaired, you could just do something like this. This will go up and down based on the material height that it's searching. It does have on the side, this is your guide, or there's a little guide right here that basically is going to, you know, tell you the depth of the material, and it just snaps into place right here on the side, and it has a little arm right here that basically, as you can see right here, this arm right here basically lowers this guide down to touch the material, and the head does also go up and down. But there's really no tools, really. This is, you can remove these and change this out without, you know, requiring any tools. On the side here, you'll notice that you have that power connector, right? And then you have your air assist right here. I love the fact that the cable chain, I'm used to when I'm working with any kind of machine that has something like this, you're always doing mods, right? You're doing cable chain mods to just make sure that the cables are nice. You have nothing to do right here. And the cool thing about it is that each one of these links is labeled as well. So everything is found here nicely. You have your extractor right there. It's not a massive extractor, but you can see we've been busy. So now I got to clean my finger. That was not too smart. But anyways, that we've been busy, and that's where all the actual exhaust goes through. And we're using the LaserPecker air purifier that you saw. Must-have accessory, especially if you're doing your place where your throw doesn't allow you to get to the window. The LaserPecker air purifier is sitting right underneath. And so this goes, there's a hose coming out, and the hose goes right underneath. You have fire suppression stuff going on over there, other accessories that are accessible there. Now, there's something else I just wanted to highlight about the laser that makes it incredibly accurate, but it's also something that makes you dependent on the solution. I'm going to remove this for a second, and you'll see a couple things. So most of the stuff that you're going to see us making here is going to be leveraging jig systems. So these are our stay downs, right? I call them stay downs because it helps material stay down. Pretty simple. And basically that holds down things to honeycomb or even the metal if you're working off of the metal here, because they're magnetic, right? And they actually have two sizes, 3 millimeters and a 1.5. So these are going to be great. So if you're going to be engraving, you know, like for example, this basswood, you're working with acrylic, you're working with leather, cutting or engraving leather, this is going to hold things down. And because they have magnets, you know, you can hear that snap, it's going to hold into place, and then it's going to hold your material down. So our stay downs are essential, at least in my workflow. And you'll notice that I'm also using a honeycomb. Now you'll notice that even though this honeycomb does fit this way, I've chosen to put it this way. And this is why. These dots that you see on every single corner are essential for photo alignment. I have, when I've had this rotated and I've covered up these dots, I will tell you that the alignment is just not there unless you use your actually crosshair alignment. So you can choose different ways to basically verify if your material is in the right place, and you can go ahead with the crosshair.
I love using the camera. So what I've done is I've rotated things around so that I have it. As soon as you cover these points, you're not going to be as accurate as you'd like it to be. Now, one of the things that you're going to find on the sides is that when you're setting your laser up, especially if you have the actual riser like we do, you're going to be removing some screws because this metal bed that's right here, this metal bed comes out. And what you'll do is, this is on one level, it'll just go down every single level until you could get larger items here. So let's say, for example, you're engraving a wine or let's say a decanter box, right? And it won't fit here because this can't go too low. What you'll be able to do is move this down a couple levels, and then it will have clearance and it should be able to engrave. So those are just a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. If you want great accuracy, you need these dots to be present and visible. Now on the bottom of the laser, as soon as you open this up, and we'll see if this stuff is going to come out right there in the corner. There are, and I right now have it storing some stuff, but you notice here, these are all the different levels. So this is how far down you can get with the material. I don't have the pass-through solution, but you can lower this down. So this gives you significant height when it comes to engraving. And once you basically move that down if you need to, all you do is close this up like this, and you're set to go. It is, there's kind of some magnets there, so it assists with closing. Now on the side of the laser, I have our air assist. It's set to auto. And basically there's a little tube that comes from this side all the way to the back. On the back of the laser, you have your exhaust. You have also a USB-C connection. You have a memory USB connection as well if you want to move something that way. There's just very little, but there's some connectivity in the back. But this is going to be your primary thing that you want to be interested in. And when it comes to this, and we'll tilt it this way so you can see it, you can either have it in auto mode, as you see right there, and that's what I have, but you can change things. You can turn it off, you can turn it on to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that is max, and it basically starts pumping air. I leave it to auto, so when the system needs it, it's going to grab it, right? So that for me is the best setting. Now on the bed itself, this bed right here is metal. And one of the I actually made a mistake when I was doing my camera calibration. I didn't realize that it was going to make it through the material, so that's why I switched to wood. But you can see that it created an unwanted grid here, but now I have a grid, right? And if you want to lay material directly on here, you can. If you're going to cut, that's where I would be cautious, and I would recommend having honeycomb. But you could actually take wood, and you can see I can put it right here. And what I could do is use my, again, my stay downs to just put one on each side, because again, that area right there is magnetic, and I can just like lock things in place wherever I need it. So I can put one here, and then I can use a larger one on the top if that's something I'd like to do. We'll flip this around because that's the area that we want. And now this is going to be in place, and it's not going to move. The actual, the one challenge that I see with the bed having this type of engraving area, and this is going to be present with a lot of different lasers, is just making sure that you have things square, right? Because this could be tilted left or right. So, there is a bottom to this, but when I put the bottom, you'll notice how far down the material went. And then if I go up on top, you'll have to work with, just trying to make sure that it's square. So you could use the crosshair, like I'll put the crosshair right here, right? And then I'll move it over a little bit. And because I have this material already marked, that kind of gives me square, at least to the material, but that truly doesn't mean it's going to be square to the material itself, unless I come over here, and then I would have to lower it down, and then just make sure that these crosshairs are aligned. So I'll probably create a jig or something that will make sure that any material I put here is always square, and it's going to work well. But I love my stay downs because they keep things down. Now, I wanted to show you another area where your camera is not going to be accurate because of the dots missing. So this is one of my larger jigs that's going to allow you to do a lot of shot glasses at the same time. And you can do shot glasses or work on glass with this laser as long as you're putting something on top of the actual glass itself. So if you put a tempera paint chalk on this as well, you're going to be able to get an engrave. Now, what I found is that as soon as you put something that covers up those dots, as I mentioned, you're basically losing that accuracy. So now what you'd have to do is make sure that you have a good template file, right? And then because you can't come all the way to the corner over here, could lower this a little bit on the bottom. Let's just make sure that it goes, yeah, because it will come further down. I could lower this a little bit more, like this. and then just make sure that that point right there is my point of origin. And then what I would do is come over here, right? And then I would basically mark this spot over here in the bottom right-hand corner. And let me go ahead and pivot this for you so you can see right there. And as long as I can keep those within my frame, I'm going to be able to use this with relative accuracy. And the whole point here is to be able to get all of your shot glasses here listed and then just run them through. Now here's another option just to show you. So we do, and as you can see a theme here, we'll see some of this engraving in action. We use a lot of jigs and everything that we do because we do volume. We don't do one-offs. We don't do, hey, let's just do one cork, or let's just do 3 corks or 4 corks. Typically our orders are going to be, we want a dozen. And for us, having repeatable processes that are fast is really important. So here's another example of where you can leverage the accuracy of the crosshair to get, repeatable things going on. So let's say, for example, I needed to do a dozen, right, sets of 4 of these cord coasters. All I have to do is put them in place with the software and then also with the laser, adjust, and then just run them. And again, I'm not using a honeycomb because I'm using the jig to hold things in place. I have my stay downs all the way around and everything is just ready to go. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and run a job, and I just wanna highlight a couple things that we're doing. Because I've covered up those dots, the system already came and basically said, you're not gonna have camera accuracy as you typically would, so make sure that you do your appropriate framing. So in order to make sure that I'm getting the accuracy I want, this is just a process that I go through, right? And I'm not saying that this is the best process, but it works for me. I basically took all of the coasters that are in this space, and this is with my jig. I put a circle around it that represents the size of the coaster itself. Then what I did is I took the actual image that I'm going to place inside of it, and what I'm doing is looking for the actual system to tell me where the center is. So I got a little notification that that's in the center. Now, there's a couple options I could work with. I could, for example, use the batch fill feature if I'd liked. Right now, I'm just showing you how I have my center line telling me that that's a center. And now I'm going to move this up a little bit until I find the sweet spot where it's going to be the same place. And now that's the center. You saw how that popped out. So what I'll do is I'll do that for each one, and then I'll hide or move these circles to a different layer, and they won't be part of my output. And then I'll just run this just like this. So this is going to give me the ability to, again, get these exactly where I want. And what I'll do is I'll frame each one to see how they look. All right, so next we'll go ahead and kick off the job, and we're going to see it actually running. And I'm going to have a view that is coming from the computer at this point, so you can see kind of what the difference is here in the overall kind of like experience. Now, unfortunately, as it's through the actual display, you don't really see what the real speed is. So we'll switch in a couple seconds to show you what the real speed is. But what you're seeing here is what the app shows you as it's engraving. Now here we'll switch to the internal screen so that you can see, or the internal camera, so you can see the actual speed itself. It's actually going pretty fast. And this again came out very crisp, very clear. The actual engravings came out really nice and dark. What I liked about the actual engraving was that there wasn't really charring. And that's really important because if you have charring, then you're burning material, and then you also have to clean it up when you're getting that charring. And sometimes when you're cleaning it up, you just get soot all over the coaster. I didn't really have that in this case. And you can see here, the coasters came out really, really nice. I'll switch back to the overhead view so you can see this, and you can see how nice and crisp. But the speed was relatively decent with this. Again, it is a gantry. It's not going to be as fast as a Galvo that doesn't have moving parts, but the way this was going and then the quality that we received, I actually was really happy with it. Now you can see that there are dots visible on the top right corner, left-hand corner, bottom, and also left and right. And that's going to give us some really good accuracy because the camera can see the dots. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use my own settings for this, and we're going to see how well this does. I will tell you that it just took a couple minutes to do, but I noticed that I didn't get a full engrave as I should have. So there's definitely more testing that I need to do. But again, the accuracy, which is something I was looking for, because the settings I can mess up easily, but the accuracy of the laser positioning was really good, especially with the camera in this case. So let's speed this up and we'll see what it looks like. Now this is wrapped up now, didn't take long. And one of the things I noticed is that the bottom areas came out really dark, but then the center didn't come out as dark, which means that there was some still material left. I did wipe this down and it was the same, right? So I have to look at my settings and I have to understand why was the laser powerful enough to get the bottom and the top, but for some reason got weaker towards the middle. So we'll go ahead and check it out. And keep in mind, you know, the firmware is being changed regularly. I'd say that this is kind of like a first look review because it's very finished, but the software firmware is getting updated all the time. And then here you can see kind of like the accuracy. Now the next material that we looked at was bamboo, because bamboo tends to be something that we do a lot of work on. And the challenge with bamboo is going to be that you typically don't get a good black mark on bamboo, especially when you're working with a diode. And I was surprised that this did a really decent job with our bamboo piece here that you'll see. You can see the settings that I used on screen, and we're just going to go ahead and run the actual engrave, and then we'll see what it looks like. So overall, the process was relatively fast. The laser is moving at a good speed. It's doing its engrave. The one thing I will highlight again is with the air assist, there's no charring. It did really well with the bamboo. Sometimes what I end up doing is I defocus, you know, maybe a couple millimeters just to make sure that everything in the bamboo doesn't get really destroyed. The wood is very soft, so when you're cutting or engraving in this case, it tends to be obliterated very easily. So you have to watch your power and your speed, and then in many cases defocusing is going to give you a better burn because since it's very fibrous, when you start engraving it, you literally can just obliterate it. So you have to be really careful with it. Now the other thing I just wanted to point out is how accurate the engrave was. So here you can see the actual original image that we were looking to engrave, and you can see that right behind it, right spot on, is the actual engraving itself. So really, really accurate. Now the next thing we did is we wanted to switch and do some metal. So I have some dog tags, some black metal dog tags. I have a jig that I'm using, because we do a lot of jigs. And then I also have our stay downs, which holds the jig on the metal bed and just makes it easier for us to work with, again, products where we have a lot of products that we engrave at once. So here I'm kind of aligning, doing the visual alignment, which again, I can see my 4 dots or 4 points, which is going to be spot on. And I'm just going to run 2 of these so that you can see what this looks like. The laser module has been installed, so we're set to go. I've also did the height, just test, right? And so now we're just going to let it run, and you'll see it again. And this is the power. So it's not just limited to dog tags. It's literally any metal. So if you wanted to do jewelry, you can. If you want to do stainless steel, you can. There's a lot of different materials. Brass, you can. You don't just have to, like in this case, I'm just revealing a white mark. But if you wanted to add a black mark to jewelry, you could. Think about Zippo lighters. Think about anything that is metal or coated and has metal underneath it that you want exposed. And here you're seeing, some beautiful reveal of text that's coming through, and it's so crisp and so clean. And that's why, minimally, if you were going to get this laser, I would say at least get the IR module if you're going to do metal. And then you can then do the whichever 20, 40, 60 when it comes to the diode. Now keep in mind that you could use a IR module on slate as well. It's not just dedicated for metal. Actually, you get interesting colors. So I'm able to get brighter whites when it comes to slate engraving using an IR module than I can with the blue module. So just don't think about this metal alone. It can do much, much more. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit so we can see, just the overall quality. What I like about this is you'll notice I also did a cow. So you could do pictures and it engraves really, really well. So you can see the cow there. I also did, just these whiskey signs. They look like it's a whiskey, but it's kind of like that old-fashioned label. And this is giving you an idea of what you can do. Because it is a gantry, it won't be as fast as a galvo laser when it comes to doing anything that's metal, but it's still doing a really good job. The quality is great. It's coming out crisp. And once again, if you have the actual laser itself has the ability to map automatically pieces. I'm kind of a chicken when it comes to that, so I like using jigs, especially if I'm working on pieces that are not mine, because I want to make sure it's predictable and that I don't miss out or damage any parts. But as you can see here, barcode, pictures, and look at the accuracy, right? We're looking at it's just right on top of it, spot on. That's outstanding. Now, not everything in our journey with the laser was perfect, and this was actually done a few firmwares ago. So I was really wanting to engrave these heart coasters, which are pretty cool looking. And what I found was that even though the camera showed an accurate engraving, at least position-wise, the actual pieces themselves did not come out exactly where I wanted them. Now the overall engraving is done, but immediately when I looked at this, there was some charring there that I hadn't noticed before. And again, this was the older firmware. And then I also noticed that things weren't aligned. They weren't like exactly where I expected them to be. So you can see how things were off here. I wanted to show you this because not all the time things are perfect, and this has been improved. Like, this is not an issue anymore. So I'll have to highlight that, say it in all caps, not an issue anymore. But as we've been testing this, we had some growing pains very, very early on. This is probably about 30 days ago. So this is not a review where we unboxed and then started running the laser. This is something that we ran for a little bit over a month now, right? You know, looking at all the updates, making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do and that it performs at the level that it does. And that's why I'm so eager and excited about this, because this is a huge step forward for LaserPecker.
So guys, that wraps up our review. See you in the next video.